The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, listener. You're welcome to Leadership Podcast. It is yet another edition of The Big Issue. I remain your one and only George Agba. Again, with me here in the studio is our guest analyst and a renowned columnist with the National Economy newspaper, Robert Opara. You're welcome to the program. And of course, as usual, we have I have my colleagues and our in-house analyst here, Chubuzo Okaibe.
Thank you.
Muyiwa Oyinlola.
Thank you very much.
And Silas Ezegu.
Thank you.
You're all welcome to this program. Well, we are here again to ensure you don't miss out on the big issues in and around the country. And of course, as usual, our discussion on issues bordering on the polity are going to be as witty as they are going to be potent. Like I've always said, big issue is a treasure to consult whenever you wish to be informed or you want to learn. So as you join us, just sit back and be ready for a thought-provoking session. And for the big issue of the day, we are delving into the tirade between the People's Democratic Party governors and the All Progressive Congress. On Monday, the Opposition Governors Forum and the APC engaged each other on overkillings and other forms of insecurity in the country under the Buhari administration. The PDP Governors Forum, in a communique issued at the end of its meeting in Bauchi, accused the APC-led Federal Government of turning Nigeria into a killing field. But the APC, in a swift reaction, said the PDP was a failed party and that the opposition party's allegations were tissues of lies. Well, of course, we are familiar with the outcome of that meeting. We all saw what the PDP governors brought out as a communique, and some of the resolutions and issues raised there. And of course, one of them is that the PDP governors accused the APC, specifically President Muhammadu Buhari, of converting the Aso Rock presidential villa into APC headquarters. You see, but the idea we are going to look at here now is that since 1999, it had been a common thing for the party in power to hold political meetings at that place. At the end of the day, we saw it happening during the PDP administrations. So now, the question goes to you, Miwa. Are the PDP governors morally justified to accuse Buhari of turning the presidential villa into APC headquarters?
Thank you very much. I think that observation by the PDP was uncalled for. It has been the stock in trade of political parties in power to hold meetings at the villa. You will recall that the PDP has sway for about 16 years. And during those periods, every activity, every event, a lot of things were happening at the villa. And I think it can be justified because that is the seat of power. That is where the president lives. And it should not be out of place if once in a while they have events, they have meetings, and they meet the president there. Don't forget that the president is leader of the party. So there will be events here and there at the secretariat and also at the villa. So having events, activities at the villa is not anything new.
But look, a political party in power is supposed to be separate from a government. Silas, let's look at it. And Aso Rock is not an annex of the APC, really, because in US, where we copied our system of governance, the presidents of that country had never turned the White House to either an annex or an office of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. It is not only at the federal level, sir, even some state governments. Sometimes the hold some of these party meetings in state government houses. How do we stop this practice, Silas? First of all, what is your opinion? Do you agree that what the APC governors are saying is justified? And if so, how do we stop such practice?
I would say that I'm surprised that they are shouting, because in this dispensation, they started it. During the time they were elsewhere, most of the things that happened, they took it to the villa to meet Obasanjo, because in Nigeria's political system, the president is the leader of the party. You have a party chairman, you have a national leader, you have all kinds of things. But everybody answers to the president. And I think the idea is that you do not expect the president to be like a chief, like a monarch or so. Why you have a monarchy, to leave his house and start going to meeting in a smaller, domain, a smaller chiefdom, maybe it's party secretaries. And two, you also look at the security implication of having to move him around like that. But the presidency is already secure, so you can always come to meet him there. He's a father. I think they are just using the African. We talk about us copying from the American system, but every political system has also a local content to it. None are the same. So in Nigeria and Africa, we are the father.
We believe in all this Owambe and some kind of
even the father is everything. Everybody has to bow to the father. Okay, you don't go to your father for anything. It doesn't come to you. Even in my where I come from, even if your father has wronged you, it's still you that the son will go and say sorry to your father, even though he's the one that wronged you. But by the way, I don't think that's Nigeria's problem.
Well,
they have mentioned a lot of other important things. This one, that whether they hold meeting or not hold meeting, shouldn't be an issue really.
But there some Nigerians have said it is an anomaly for a political party, which is a voluntary organization, to be hosted at the presidential villa, most of their meetings, at the expense of taxpayer money, because they say everything they are going to eat there, everything they are going to do there is at the expense of taxpayer money. And of course, remember, recently, INEC said it has stopped political rallies and certain kind of gatherings in worship centers and some other places. So don't you think INEC should even extend this kind of prohibition? Because what Nigerians are saying that whatever these party people are going to eat in the villa at what have been budgeted for in a year, in the annual budget as feeding. So what Opara, what do you think about that?
Guys, whether they hold this meeting in Sambisa Forest, whether they hold it in an airport tarmac or in a town hall meeting, that's not the issue. The issue that borders on the Nigerian developmental effort is good governance. And so, just like I did say yesterday during our program, there's a governance crisis in the country, basically. There's abject hunger and poverty in the land. And so whether these guys are playing to the gallery or they are, who cares whether if they are dreaming and having their meeting. But what Nigerians want is that in the morning tomorrow, they want to know that the cup of garri is low, the cup of rice is low, and the tomatoes and onions that has become gold and silver is available in the market. Bottom line, are they offering anything, any subsidy, any better input to the farmers? From the last time I checked, absolutely no. And are they doing anything for youths? Now, everybody's we discussed extensively about the banditry PLC yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, every youth, they don't care how much they sell Mercedes or Range Rover. Every youth wants to drive a Range Rover. And if after watching this guy, what's his name, that buried his mother with hundreds of millions of Cubana. Which of the youths wants to play a second fiddle and watch somebody's car?
Wait, sorry to cut you short.
You
You continue, please. I saw one other WhatsApp post where the president sat down, was watching television. I don't know what that was. Whether that was a Photoshop.
It's a Photoshop.
Actually, because when he sat down on the television screen, it was Obi Kubana that was there.
So
and the president was not reasoning. And so this boy has this kind of money, and we've been borrowing money from China. And I don't know whether I should send EFCC I should send after him or DSS.
Or FBI.
If you ask him first, okay, send the money.
And then see the president's own pronunciation of the name Ovikuvana. He said, Ovikuvana.
Anyway.
So my brother,
Nigerians are very funny.
The quest for good governance. If you want to understand what I'm saying, why don't you just take a trip to Federal Ministry of Agriculture? Pose as a farmer. You're coming from Bauchi, you're coming from Imo State, you're coming from Anambra, you have this vast land and all that stuff. Are you going to get a listening ear? Absolutely no. Because these guys, I run an NGO too, and I know that what we do in that NGO, we allow farmers to actually participate in the food production process. But are you going to get any government subvention? No. The youth, are they getting any outside pocket money from the government? No. And so these same youths, most of the girls in universities today, most of the young boys in universities today are actually the breadwinners of their families. So how do you want them to, succeed in the university when they are actually fending for themselves? And so who says that somebody from that university arrangement cannot go out there and use an extraordinary means and to get a gun and do kidnapping by the sideline? So the government needs to concentrate on governance.
What you're trying to say in essence is that if the PDP must engage the government of the day, they must engage them constructively,
meaningfully. For me, this is a pedestrian argument.
I understand. But Chibuzo, please, let's still on the Aso Villa thing. You've heard all what our colleagues have said here, the analysts have said here. What they say is just pointing to one thing, that it appears the PDP governors are suffering from what ordinarily in our local parlance we could best describe as afternoon bad belly, because that shouldn't have been what should concern them. What do you have to say in this regard?
It's interesting that they had to throw that line of thought into the other list of things
they were talking about. Yes.
They listed, in their communique. At the level of this meeting, where meetings hold and all, but I think it's also good to put a couple of things in context. Number one, caucus meetings hold at the behest of the leader of the party, and such caucus meetings are held. For instance, if a ruling party, has always held in the presidency. In a presidential system, I've also heard of times where, even in the US, the president meets with party leaders in the White House. So it is not strange at that level. That is one. However, in the broader context, when they want to do a meeting of a larger organ of the party, it has always held at the party secretariat, the national secretariat. So I think PDP was just majoring on a minor issue on this one. So for me, it's
thank you. In that, let's just leave that particular issue and let's go to another point the PDP governors raised in that meeting. They accused the APC-led Federal Government of turning Nigeria into a killing field. That under this government, killings have become. That is what term do I?
Killing PLC.
Yeah, of course. Then the level of insecurity has assumed a monumental proportion. How do you compare past PDP administrations and the present APC administration in terms of handling of security? Of course, let's say like the PDP administration, let's even narrow it down to just the last one before Buhari take over. How do you compare the two? I think you'll be in a better.
My brother, see, as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned, all of us seated here, we're all interested parties to governance of this country, basically. Whether you're a correspondent, whether you are editor, whether you're a production manager, every single thing all of us do here is to make sure that good governance is propelled in the country. But having said that, sir, the question that the PDP governors raise, of course they are correct, because correct in the sense that if PDP handled governance the way APC is handling it today, because for me personally, they are not interested in this hues and cries of killing field. APC, they've not actually gone back, to themselves and say, okay, guys, how do we strategize? How can we deploy, experts, crack teams that can actually, help the police, help the army, help, help the, the military. By the way, who is in charge of Villa? Who are in charge of the Villa? There's a section of the country that is actually in charge of the Villa, because for me, the essence of doing that is to ensure that they can hold their kids and kinsmen responsible if anything goes wrong. Right now, if you check those that are in charge of security in this country, who are they?
They're from the same place.
They're from the same place. They're from the, they're from the, I don't want to use, regional name, but they are Mr. President's kinsmen and all that. So at the end of the day, where are we headed to? Nigerians are dying every day. Here in Abuja, right in Owerri, we're in Bauchi, in Lagos, Nigerians are being extinct every single day because this government, they seem clueless.
But those sympathetic,
it's bottom line.
But those sympathetic to the government of the day are saying that killings did not start under this administration. They have even referred us back towards the Jonathan administration, back to the Jonathan's administration, where some of these bombings, even activities, attacks by terrorists were even taking place in Abuja.
That one was a child's play compared to what is going on today, basically. That's a child's play. Killing is killing anyway. Whether they kill 2 persons or 3 persons or 1,000 persons, Nigerians are losing their lives.
Anyway, Jonathan government, they faced that problem, but he saw them trying to do something about it. I can recall that towards the 2015 election, the country was so violent that the government had to just postpone the election for how many weeks? 6 weeks or thereabout, and crack down on the so-called terrorists to the point that Nigeria had election every polling unit without disruption. That was like magic or miracle. So the problem we have with this government is that we do not see any empathy, as if they are doing strategic thinking or action. We saw when Jonathan deployed his army chiefs to go to the north, and then some of the north started shouting that they're killing our boys. They're killing, and they pressured him to remove some of his army chiefs. So the problem is that we're not seeing this government as taking it as a priority to keep people alive in Nigeria. That's why Nigerians are worried, and that is what created. I don't want to rest from this topic. That is what created the CBOs and the councils of Nigeria. It's this idea that people can come and kill people in their communities, slaughter their household, raid their houses, destroy their shop, and there's no effort to arrest them, to stop them, even when they know where they are. That's the problem. So killing has been going on, but they will sell some government in the past trying to do something about it, which we're not seeing right now. What we're doing now is kind of window dressing.
Well, let's just take a short break. When we are back, we are also going to entertain some comments from our viewers, listener. Let's just take a short break and we'll be back for a moment.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, listener. You're welcome back. This is The Big Issue in Leadership Podcast. And of course, the issue of the day is PDP Governors Tirade against the APC government and the verdict of history. And of course, like we were talking, still on insecurity, the issue that the PDP governors raised, Muyiwa, he said the insecurity of today you are seeing, just like they're accusing the APC-led government of turning the country into a battlefield. But don't forget that most of this insecurity situation, the crimes we have here, were as a result of political contestations. You understand? Most of these things were as a result of arming political talks in the past.
Yes.
And some of those talks are the ones who have done. This other guy that was killed in a Benue State. Is it Ghana? What is that his name? They say he was even a product. He was a product of political thuggery. It was the government that armed him. I think what concerns the ordinary Nigeria is how to end the killings and other forms of crimes here. How do we stop them? The killings, banditry, abduction.
It's very worrisome, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate because this government of President Muhammadu Buhari is one government that enjoyed overwhelming support of a lot of people because they believe that being a former army general, it will come around and turn the tide. I recall that in 2015 when APC was coming on board, they made 3 promises: revive the economy, tackle corruption, at the same time end kidnapping and insurgency
and the rest.
I don't want to take all of them at the same time, but let's look at the area of terrorism, insurgency. I think this government has failed woefully, and the failure is traceable to lack of willingness of leadership to tackle it, or at least the way what we are exposed to. There's not been that bite. There's not been that seriousness, to use the word, from this particular government to tackle insurgency. And I'll give you instances. We've had one man called Gumi, saying that
Islamic cleric,
saying that he's interfacing with the bandits, and government is not doing anything about it. We've had some people claiming that bandits are doing business. We've also had the president saying that we are going to do something to, I assure you we'll do this, I'm sure we'll do that. Under the last administration of PDP, it was only Chibok girls that were kidnapped. In this present administration, a number of students have been kidnapped from so many schools. Many of them have been killed without any.
Some of them are even still there.
Yes.
In the bandits' den.
Yes. They're not even looking for them. That's the thing.
Yes. Somebody had even said that, imagine that the president said he's so surprised that the government of the day is sleeping very comfortably and luxuriously without taking into consideration that
there's no
children that are kidnapped, abducted, are somewhere in the bush under rain and sun.
And nobody gives a damn.
Look at these better students there. Some of them were doing this over the weekend. Many of them were limping. And they were going to write exam. You find out that even to have your children in school now, you are not safe. Your children are not safe. You are not safe. Government is practically doing nothing.
Well, in other words, you were trying to say, because don't forget what the APC said in hitting back at the PDP. The APC described the PDP as a failed party. That all these things, they pointed out some of the things that happened during the PDP government.
But they came on board because they said they were going to correct the ills of PDP government. PDP has not done well in this area. We are coming on board to come and correct all these things. They have failed. They have not done anything better.
Well, we are not really. Yes, Mr. Salas, you have
the country, even ask them themselves, those who are speaking, these people, and they really say that the country is more secure now than then. Right now, if they want to go to sleep, are they more afraid of what will happen over the night now or then? Let them tell the truth. It's, we don't. My concession, my stance is that things could happen, really, but we want to see real effort, at addressing it. Because you see parents being the one to negotiate with the bandits, going to them up and down bandits, or them motorcycles, or them human beings, they're banning from the market. There's no intelligence tracking them to know where they are. There's no interest in finding out who these people are and stopping them. That's just that's what people are
see
so
what the bandits are even doing. They're doing everything with some kind of gumption.
I wanted to see.
The extent that even they ransom bearer who takes it to them, when they see it, they'll catch him and keep it.
No, see, I wanted to hear the government come out something tough after the shutdown and after that fighter jet. But the only possibility was that the brave soldier was able to escape. I didn't see them saying, "This is why I've shut down our jet, our fighter jet.
We have to go.
Must crack down on them." I want to see them work action. I didn't say anything.
What they did was to take time out to celebrate with the pilot that escaped.
And the pilot said because he escaped, those people went and
so what they are celebrating is not
in
a
that
feat
community
of defeating the enemy. It's a feat of escaping from the enemy within enemy lines.
I didn't hear them talking tough.
Well, let's look at another point. Okay. For the electoral system, the PDP governors condemned the attempt to force on all political party one method of conducting primary, which is direct primary method only, through the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. See what the governor said. They noted that the method is prone to massive rigging, as evidenced by a situation where President Buhari scored about 15 million votes in the 2018 APC direct primaries, only to score 15 more votes from the entire country in the 2019 general election. 15 million votes again. And the question they were asking, is it right for INEC to dictate to the political parties how to conduct primaries?
See,
because what they are afraid is that during the direct primary, from only APC members alone, Buhari got 15 million. And then in the main election, Buhari got another 15 million.
Can APC see that they have 15 million people in their books as members? That's what I'm saying.
See.
And will all the members vote?
See, the thing that PDP governors are saying, I think they should be ashamed of themselves, really. In the sense that, see, let's look at Lagos State, or rather, let's look at Imo State. If you go down to Imo State today and ask the governor, what percentage of your budget have you handled over the past 1 year? If you ask me, that budget is in his pocket. I'm not too sure the governor, most of the governors, they don't even understand what the budget issues are. Because as a governor and as governors of PDP, if you ask them today, combined, how many of you achieve 80% of your budgetary allocations and targets and thresholds? How many of them have structured a process of employment in their states? How many of these governors, including APC? Let's stop beating about the bush.
No, but
I'm coming.
I know.
I'm coming.
Okay.
The bottom line is that Nigerians are cooking. See, we are just standing on a tenterhook, and this thing can explode or can implode at any time.
Of course,
because there's hunger in the land. Basically.
So
we cannot be talking about electoral nonsensical crap when people are dying.
Of course,
people are dying.
In as much as we agree with that,
let's still look.
I understand.
Let's still look at it based on point. What the question here is it right for INEC to dictate to political parties how to conduct primaries?
The answer is no.
That is what this direct primary is.
No, the answer is no.
Yes, because normally, INEC goes to primaries of political parties as an observer to ensure that parties follow the rules, their own rules, their own party rules. But now it appears the new electoral amendment bill
Want to sit for
That is what
there is a
makes
push
entire democracy
for INEC to
reign.
decide for the parties how to conduct their primaries. That is what we should Chibuzo.
Okay. Well, I think that thing is the PDP was reacting based on what it said is, or the PDP governors rather, are reacting based on what it says moves, because it has to be legislated into law first. That the National Assembly intends to, make a law in that direction. And of course, like the bulk of us have said here, it is absolutely nonsensical, if you ask me. However, I suspect that the reason why they are bringing this as a topical issue and they're trying to make it much more bigger than just waving it aside with the wave of the hand, is because of a seeming tendency to have legislative dictatorship play out. Because for some, or for most Nigerians, or for many Nigerians, they feel that with the way the e-transmission votes played out, we might just have a repeat of that kind of scenario. Now, whether that is possible at the level of this proposal for all parties to have a uniform primary system,
which is direct primary,
is neither here nor there. But I think the purpose for which the PDP governors perhaps are pushing this narrative now is to prepare the minds of Nigerians, to this kind of a possible play out of this scenario. But however, I think what is even more fundamental is how transparent are primaries in Nigeria, whether indirect or direct. I think that is the major issue. It's not about whether you do direct or indirect. Of course, parties have a right to determine how they run their affairs. But how transparent have they run their affairs? That, I think, is the bigger question.
Yeah, but let's look at what the PDP say. You say whether direct or indirect, how transparent are primary elections? But you see, the point PDP raised is very, very salient here. Because that point alone, they say Buhari got 15 million votes during a primary that was conducted by the party alone from members of APC, and then got 15 million votes for Nigeria in the general election. It's something to worry about this direct primary.
Is that not abracadabra?
Of course. No. I think that is why, but you see, although the APC itself, the APC as a party has accused the PDP that the PDP is in the shadow of its own goalposts because it's afraid of what it was doing when it was in power. When he talk of monumental rigging or plans to rig the election.
Party primaries have always been dogged by, corruption. And I use that word, corruption. Because we are in the field, we see what happened. When you go to the indirect primary system, you know how much dollars have been thrown around. It's almost like a survival of the fittest. There is whoever has the bigger war chest gets everywhere.
They were sharing dollars to 2000.
And most times,
one person went with 70 million for just being a delegate. And he said he voted for himself.
So that is the direct primary thing. That's the indirect primary thing. When you go to the direct primary, we can see what is playing out in Anambra. The same Anambra now. Their party chieftains are saying, "Oh, what kind of direct primary did we do? Most of the materials didn't come to our wards. We didn't see any of that." So beyond whether, and I think, like I said earlier, it is wrong for us to have a legislative dictatorship dictate in a way that is immoral or amoral. However, I think the focus should be on ensuring that we have a proper, credible, transparent, and fair primary system as much as we can. We might not have a perfect one, but let it be seen that a strong, mechanisms are on ground to ensure that.
How can this be done? Can we not say that INEC should conduct the election for them using their own laws? Because politicians are so desperate. They want to outsmart the other person, and they do it by hook or crook. That's why you cannot have transparent primaries within any party. Every party will try to maneuver themselves and get to power. that goal, power is the only thing they're interested in.
Well,
So they're interested in that. So can you now say that? How can we now have them to conduct it when all of them are quote unquote kind of desperate people?
It starts from the foundation. It's about money, first of all. When you have a system that is so monetized, it tilts the balance of power in a certain way. I think it starts from there. We have a very a political system that has become so monetized, and so it blinds the eyes of those who should do what is right. That these systems they're all laid out in both parties, direct and indirect. The pattern for which they should operate are all laid out, and they're objective. But the operators of these things, because of the way the system has become so monetized, are the ones manipulating most of this. So I can even say if the INEC is allowed to come and conduct it, we will still have these problems. After all, we say INEC officials getting involved in corrupt. So it's a serious problem that has to be looked into. I might not have all the answers, but what I'm trying to play out is the simplistic approach to it that the PDP tends to be pushing, about this whole, or that this debate is generating at the moment. It's not going to be the solution to it. There are real fundamental issues. Complex, yes, but they are fundamental and they need to be addressed before we can say,
thank you. I think you did that point made that you just hit a point on the head here now. Because first of all, let's look at the context or the situation that would have warranted the PDP governor to come out to make this allegation.
Exactly.
There's one point they raise here. The PDP governors in that meeting also accused the APC of twisting its members, its governors, to leave them to go and join them. Of course, what do we understand by twisting here? A situation where you say the ruling parties twisting our governors to go and join them. These PDP governors were there first.
It's just AKA longer throat. Period. You and your party. See, this whole driving from PDP to APC started under Jonathan, right? I remember when they were having their program somewhere, near Sheraton, in those days. Why they were seated, majority of PDP, governors had already left.
The famous walkout.
Yes, they walked out.
2013 national convention.
Yes. So, and at the end of the day, see, look at the former governor of the former PDP governor of Ebonyi. He left, and of course, people said that he was shooting for presidential ticket. But today, I don't even know if he will win a ticket for for Senate. And so all these governors, all of them, they are just looking for greener pastures or political greener pastures.
Thank you very much.
That's what they are.
Let's look. Silence. Let's look at this.
I have another
but wait, before you go, let me just put it straight the way the PDP government said it. That the APC is using underhand tactics to twist some PDP governors and other stakeholders to join the APC. And then they now say a political party that has wrecked Nigeria's economy, turned Nigeria into a killing field, and has nothing to offer Nigerians but misery and bad governance. So now, the PDP governors joining the APC, are they not aware that the government has failed?
It's actually
it's also a mismanagement of the process of PDP. It's a leadership crisis PDP has there. Sorry.
No, you can speculate on it. But on this case, I too was like, this government is not doing well. It's not even popular. People are fed up. People are in despair. And what makes it so attractive?
Yes,
for people to be
because given the reality on ground, the country is facing economic crisis.
You know why?
It's a safety net.
Unemployment and the rest.
It's a safety net.
The government that has been criticized, is being criticized to have failed. What is attracting these people?
You see, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I see. What I think I see is that these governors, they do not have confidence that this party will allow itself to be voted at by the populace. So they believe that in the next election, okay, that they will not allow free and fair election, even if they are not doing well, and that they will not allow Nigerians, so they did during that time, to have their way and vote them out through it. And that's why you can see that the APC government, APC senators all voted against the transmission. And so already within the minds of these people, they believe that this government will continue to be in power 2023, whatever happens, even if Nigeria sinks, even if Nigerians all vote against them, they will not take power. Two is that the former governor of APC chairman has already told them that if you have sinned and you cross over to APC, you'll be safe. They will not prosecute you. They will not send FCC after you. And some of these governors, you know how they are. Yeah. And they're afraid that some of their sins will be used against them. So it's better to join the gravy train in order to escape, censure from the authorities. So these are two things that they're looking at: politically and self-survival.
Well, let's look at. I think some Nigerians are beginning to comment out there, and of course we have Hamidu Abdullahi. He has this to say. Of course, the reaction of APC is true because the killings in the country during PDP was worse than this administration. We were listening to them.
Yeah, was worse.
I don't think so.
What do you think so?
I don't think so.
But that is his own opinion.
Yes, that is it.
Of course. And then let's look at what Abdul Ghani Robunala Abdul Wahid is saying. The problem is a social problem. We should rather tackle it headlong than using it as a political platform. Headers, banditry, and other criminality like IPOP killings are a menace. We should all join hands to eradicate rather than making Buhari a failure because life is getting lost. Or life is being lost. That is his own way of putting. What do you think about Silas?
Well, like I say, they have their opinion, and you can see some of them are diehard, Buhari, and apologies, and there's nothing that will happen that they will blame this government because they spotted it and they support it.
No, but I think the last person there, what he was trying to say is that we should forget politics. Let's stop playing politics.
It's not be blamed on. The buck stops at the president's table.
Okay.
His job is to secure Nigerians, their lives and their property. And right now, Nigerians are losing their lives, in droves. And we should complain. Who do we complain to? If he now has all the instruments of power, of states, coercion to control these coercive elements that are killing Nigerians. So if you cannot do it, I'm not going to come to my father that tell long ago. The president that will say, look, my life is threatened and you need to protect me. And you're not doing that.
Well, while we are still waiting for more comments, Chibuzo, you have something?
I think it is unfortunate that insecurity has become so politicized. And I think it's a fundamental problem, if not the most fundamental problem for why we are having, the kind of insecurity we are having today. Of course, decades back, we kept hearing, Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder. Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder for decades. And I think today we are beginning to see that gunpowder, explode gradually. And there's no telling when it will finally explode. Because the dimension this security crisis is taking by the day appears to show a system collapse. And it is very worrisome. Systems don't just collapse. Systems collapse when there's no elite consensus. And I think that is at the heart of what we are facing at the moment. So until there's some measure of elite consensus that has been projected and has constructed over time, we might continue to have this problem. And we can only hope that some system or some structure, is brought up so that we can broaden the space for dialogue and find the solution to what we are facing at the moment.
Well, of course, we are running out of time. It has been a wonderful time being here in the studio, and I hope it was a moment that was good enough to relish. Listener, I hope you were able to understand the issues at stake, and of course, you can judge for yourself between the APC and the PDP governors who are actually saying the truth. And of course, it has been a wonderful time here in the studio. And of course, I must not fail to thank our in-house analysts, Silas, Muyiwa, and Chibuzo, and of course, our guest analysts who have done a wonderful job here to interrogate this matter. And of course, it is time to draw the curtain, and I say, join us next same time tomorrow for another edition of The Big Issue. Have a nice time.